I never thought doing laundry would destroy my marriage, but that's exactly what happened last Tuesday. While emptying Ethan's jacket pockets, I found the bright orange eviction notice crumpled into a tight ball. 3 months behind on rent. My hands trembled as I smoothed out the paper, hoping I'd somehow misread it. My name is Riley, and until that moment, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. Decent job at a tech startup, loving husband of 5 years, and enough savings to start thinking about buying our first house. Well, I thought we had savings. Hey babe, have you seen my gray jacket? Ethan called from the bedroom. I need it for tomorrow's client meeting. I stood in our tiny laundry room, clutching that notice like it might burst into flames. Found it, I managed to say, my voice surprisingly steady. Along with something else you might want to explain. The footsteps behind me stopped. I turned around, holding up the notice. Ethan's face went from confusion to recognition to something I'd never seen before, raw fear. Riley, I can explain, he started, running his hand through his hair, his classic tell when he's nervous. Madison needed help with the kids' school fees, and then there was the car repair and… your sister. I cut him off. You gave our rent money to Madison? He stepped closer, reaching for my hands, but I backed away. She's struggling since Tom died. The kids. Our landlord doesn't care about Madison's kids, Ethan. He cares about getting paid. I waved the notice in his face. 3 months. How long were you planning to keep this from me? I was handling it, he insisted, but his voice wavered. I got a bonus coming next month. I was going to catch up on everything then. I walked past him into our living room, suddenly seeing our apartment with new eyes. The photos of us on the walls, smiling like idiots who thought they knew what their future held. The fancy coffee maker we'd splurged on for our anniversary. All of it built on lies. What else don't I know about? I asked, turning back to face him. What other bills haven't you paid? Ethan's silence told me everything. My phone buzzed, a text from Madison herself. Can't wait for family dinner tomorrow. Red heart. The irony made me laugh, but it wasn't a happy sound. Here was my sister-in-law, casually planning dinner while we were about to lose our home because of her. I'll fix this, Ethan promised, moving toward me again. Madison's getting back on her feet. She just needed a little help. A little help? I scrolled through our joint bank account, the numbers finally making horrible sense. $5,000 in the last 2 months isn't a little help, Ethan. That's our entire savings. He flinched. She's family. And what am I? The question hung between us like smoke, choking us both. Before he could answer, another text from Madison lit up my phone. By the way, can I crash at your place next week? Just until I find something permanent. Love you both. House. I showed Ethan the message, watching his face. He couldn't meet my eyes. You already told her yes, didn't you? His silence was answer enough. I walked to our bedroom, pulled out my suitcase, and started packing. Not because I was leaving, not yet anyway, but because someone would have to move soon. And I wanted to be ready when the sheriff showed up to enforce that eviction notice. Riley, please, Ethan called from the doorway. We can figure this out. I kept packing, my movements mechanical. You're right, we can. But first, you need to decide something. I zipped up the suitcase and finally looked at him. Who's more important to you, your wife or your sister? Because right now, you can't have both. The look on his face told me he already knew the answer. He just wasn't ready to admit it yet. I spent the morning at work trying to focus on our latest marketing campaign, but all I could think about was the eviction notice burning a hole in my purse. The sound of moving boxes being dragged across our floor last night kept replaying in my head, Madison and her kids settling into our spare room while I pretended to sleep. Riley? Earth to Riley. My boss Jordan waved his hand in front of my face during our team meeting. You okay? You seem distracted. Sorry, just. I gestured vaguely at my laptop. Lots on my mind. After the meeting, I ducked into the break room to call my best friend Lila. Before I could even dial, Madison's latest Instagram post popped up on my feed, her kids posing in brand new soccer uniforms with the caption, Fresh Start. #blessed #new beginnings. My hands shook as I typed a message to Lila, emergency wine needed. My place after work. Her response was immediate, on my way, bringing the good stuff. When I got home, Madison was sprawled on our couch, scrolling through her phone while her kids chased each other around the living room. Our living room. The space that used to be my sanctuary after long workdays. Riley. Madison jumped up, all smiles. I hope you don't mind. I borrowed your fancy coffee maker. The kids were driving me crazy, and I needed a pick-me-up. I stared at the empty pod container next to my $400 machine, the one Ethan and I had saved up for months to buy. Those pods are pretty expensive. Oh, don't worry. Ethan said it was fine. She waved dismissively. Hey, could you watch the kids for an hour? I have a potential client meeting. Before I could respond, she was already grabbing her designer bag. The one I'd noticed was newer than anything in my closet. Thanks, you're the best. There's some mac and cheese in the kitchen if they get hungry. The door slammed behind her just as Lila arrived, wine bottles in hand. She took one look at the chaos, toys scattered everywhere, my coffee maker dripping sadly. Two sugar-hyped kids running circles around us and pulled me into the kitchen. Okay, spill, she demanded, pouring generous glasses of wine. What's really going on? I told her everything, the eviction notice, the drained savings, Madison's sudden move-in. With each revelation, Lila's lawyer face grew more concerned. Riley, she said carefully, this isn't just about money. This is financial abuse. That's a bit dramatic. Is it? She pulled out her phone, showing me Madison's social media. New clothes, spa days, shopping sprees, all while you're facing eviction? And Ethan's enabling this? A crash from the living room made us both jump. Madison's younger kid had knocked over my favorite vase, a wedding gift from my grandmother. Sorry, Aunt Riley, he called, already running off to the next disaster. Where's Ethan during all this? Lila asked, helping me clean up the broken pieces. Working late. Again. I dropped the shards into the trash. He says he needs the extra commission to catch up on bills, but you think he's avoiding the situation? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. Mom's coming for dinner tomorrow. Didn't want you to be surprised. Love you. Lila read the message over my shoulder and whistled low. Helen's coming? That's all you need, the enabler-in-chief. I can't do this anymore, I whispered, sliding down against the kitchen cabinet. I can't keep pretending everything's okay while they drain us dry. Then don't. Lila's voice was steel. You're a marketing genius, Riley. Time to start marketing yourself as someone who won't be taken advantage of. The front door opened, and Madison breezed in, shopping bags in hand. The meeting went great. Oh, hi, Lila. Riley, I got the kids some new games to keep them occupied. Ethan said it was fine. I caught Lila's eye, seeing my own anger reflected there. Something had to give, and soon. I just hadn't decided yet if it would be my marriage or my sanity. By the way, Madison added, Mom's bringing her famous casserole tomorrow. She's so excited to discuss our new living arrangement. I gripped my wine glass tighter, already dreading tomorrow's dinner. But as I watched Madison unpack her shopping spree, a plan started forming in my mind. If they wanted to play Happy Family, I could play too, right up until I couldn't anymore. The family dinner was exactly the disaster I expected, but what happened after changed everything. Helen arrived with her famous casserole and an agenda, while Madison played the perfect grieving widow. I sat at my own dinner table feeling like an intruder in my home. Riley, dear, Helen said, passing the salad I'd made but nobody touched. Madison tells me you've been so helpful with the children. It's wonderful to see you embracing family responsibility. I stabbed a cherry tomato with my fork. Actually, I've been working late most nights. Big project deadline coming up. Oh! Helen's disapproval could have curdled milk. Well, family should come first. Right, Ethan. Before Ethan could answer, Madison's phone rang. She glanced at it, then quickly declined the call. Within seconds, it rang again. Everything okay? I asked, noticing her hands trembling slightly. Just spam, she said too quickly. So, Mom, about that teaching position you mentioned. The phone rang a third time. This time, I caught a glimpse of the caller ID, Rent-A-Center Collections. Madison excused herself, nearly running to the bathroom. In her haste, she left her phone on the table. It lit up with a text message visible to everyone. Final notice. Payment overdue for Louis Vuitton purchase. Account being sent to collections. The silence around the table was deafening. "I'll check on her," Helen announced, but I was already standing. "No, let me." I grabbed Madison's phone and headed to the bathroom, my heart pounding. I found her sitting on the edge of the tub, mascara running down her face. "They're going to take everything," she whispered. "What do you mean, everything?" She looked up at me, and for the first time since moving in, I saw real fear in her eyes. The furniture, the bags, the kids' gaming systems, it's all rented or on credit. I thought I could keep up with the payments if I just got one good client. "But you told Ethan you needed money for the kids' school fees." "I did. But then there were the credit card bills and the rental payments and—" She buried her face in her hands. "After Tom died, I couldn't let the kids see how bad things were. They'd already lost their father. I couldn't let them lose their whole life too." I sat down next to her, my anger warring with unexpected sympathy. "So you let Ethan lose his instead?" "He offered." She looked up fiercely. "I never asked." "You didn't have to ask. You just had to look sad enough, mention the kids enough times, and he'd offer." "Right." Her silence was answer enough. Back in the dining room, I could hear Helen consoling Ethan. "You're doing the right thing, supporting your sister. Riley just doesn't understand family loyalty." I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. $27,000, I said quietly. Madison looked confused. "What?" "That's how much Ethan's given you in the past year. I went through all our accounts last night. $27,000 while we're facing eviction." "I'll pay it back," she whispered. "Once I get steady work." "When's the last time you actually looked for work, Madison? Real work, not just posting on Instagram about being a freelance creative." She flinched. "You don't understand." "No, I do understand. You're scared. But you're not the only one losing everything." I stood up, holding out her phone. "You have two choices. Either you tell Ethan and Helen the truth right now, or I will. And I'll include the screenshots I took of all your purchase histories." "You wouldn't." "Try me." I opened the bathroom door. "I'm done watching my marriage die to keep your secrets." Madison grabbed my arm. "Please, just give me a few more days. I have a real interview tomorrow, I swear." I looked at her designer outfit, probably also bought with our money. Funny thing about marketing, we're trained to spot fake promises. "You've got until dessert to come clean." Walking back to the dining room, I heard Ethan defending me to his mother. Riley's right about needing boundaries. I paused, hope flickering in my chest. Then Helen responded, "Boundaries? Family doesn't have boundaries, Ethan. Family takes care of its own, no matter what." I squared my shoulders and walked in, Madison trailing behind me. Time to find out exactly what family meant to everyone at this table. I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. My hands shook too much to type anyway, and the migraine that started during last night's family dinner still pulsed behind my eyes. As I sat in our empty apartment, Madison had taken the kids to the park. I noticed something odd about the mail on the counter. An envelope from Ethan's company caught my eye. Not addressed to him, but to Madison. I shouldn't have opened it. But after everything, I felt entitled to a few sins of my own. Inside was a job offer. Not just any job, a senior graphic design position at Ethan's company, dated 2 weeks ago. The salary was more than I made after 5 years at my startup. My phone buzzed. "Jordan, my boss, missing you today. Hope everything's okay. By the way, weird question. Did you recommend someone named Madison Whitman for our design contract?" The room started spinning. I texted back, "When?" "Yesterday. Said she was your sister-in-law. Her portfolio looked great, but wanted to check with you first." I was still staring at my phone when Ethan came home early, looking exhausted. "Hey, you're home." I thought. He stopped when he saw the letter in my hand. "When were you going to tell me?" I asked quietly. "Riley, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you got Madison a job she's apparently too good to take?" Or that she's still playing the struggling widow while applying for contracts behind my back. He sat heavily on our couch. She's scared, Riley. The job at my company. She said it would feel like charity. But taking our rent money isn't charity? That's different. You're right, it is different. I pulled up Jordan's text. Because while she's turning down real jobs, she's trying to steal contracts from my company. Did you know about that too? His silence was damning. God, Ethan, do you even see what she's doing? She's not struggling. She's playing us all against each other. And you're helping her do it. She lost her husband. He started, but I cut him off. And I'm losing mine. Every day, every dollar, every decision. It all goes to Madison first. When does it end? He reached for me, but I stepped back. I'm trying to help everyone. No, you're trying to avoid choosing. But guess what? Your silence is a choice too. My phone buzzed again, Lila this time. Just saw Madison at Nordstrom. Using your credit card? Call me. I showed Ethan the message. His face went pale. That's impossible. I canceled the card she had. When? Today? Yesterday? Because the damage is already done. I pulled up our credit card app. $3,000. In one day. He put his head in his hands. I'll talk to her. Like you talked to her about the job? About the contracts? About our savings? My voice cracked. When does it end, Ethan? Before he could answer, Madison burst through the door, shopping bags in hand. She froze when she saw us. Oh, she said softly. I can explain. Save it. I held up the job offer letter. Congratulations on your new position. The one you didn't tell anyone about. Her eyes darted to Ethan. You promised you wouldn't. He didn't, I cut in. But thanks for confirming you're both lying to me. Madison's face hardened. You don't understand what it's like. To lose everything? Actually, I do. Because that's exactly what's happening right now. I grabbed my keys and purse. Ethan stood up. Where are you going? To work. Someone in this house has to. I paused at the door. By the way, Madison, I just texted Jordan about your contract application. Don't bother following up. Her face crumpled. You can't do that. Watch me. Oh, and the credit card you used today? It's being reported stolen. Have fun explaining that to the store. As I walked out, I heard Ethan calling after me. But for the first time since this all started, I didn't look back. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to figure out what's worth keeping. My phone buzzed with a text from Helen. Family dinner at our house tonight. No excuses. I typed back 2 words. Watch me. I spent 3 days at Lila's apartment, ignoring calls from everyone except Jordan. On the 4th morning, I walked into work to find Madison sitting in our lobby, looking nothing like the polished social media influencer she pretended to be. 5 minutes, she said, her voice rough. Please. I walked past her to the elevator. I have a meeting. Ethan moved out. My finger froze over the elevator button. What? He's staying at Mom's. Said he needed time to think. She laughed bitterly. Guess that makes 2 of us who destroyed his life. Before I could respond, Jordan appeared. Riley, got a minute? Oh! He noticed Madison. Miss Whitman, I believe we need to discuss your contract application. Actually, I said, surprising myself, can we use your office? All 3 of us. In Jordan's office, Madison's facade crumbled completely. I didn't mean to apply for the same contract. I didn't know it was your company until you saw my name on the client list? I finished. The list you accessed using my laptop? Jordan leaned forward. That's a serious breach of confidentiality, Miss Whitman. I know. She wiped her eyes. I know, okay? I screwed up. I screw everything up. But I need this chance. My kids. Stop. My voice was sharper than I intended. Stop using your kids as shields. They deserve better than that. What do you want from me, Riley? She snapped. To admit I'm a failure? Fine. I'm a failure. I couldn't save my marriage, couldn't save Tom, couldn't even keep up the perfect widow act without destroying my brother's marriage too. Jordan quietly excused himself, leaving us alone with the weight of her words. You had a job offer, I said finally. A good one. At Ethan's company. Working for my brother's company, living in my brother's house, spending my brother's money. She shook her head. I needed to prove I could do something on my own. By stealing my clients? By competing fairly. I didn't use your work or your designs. I created everything myself, stayed up all night for weeks. She pulled out her phone, showing me her portfolio. Look. Really look. I did. And damn it, she was good. Really good. Why didn't you show this to Ethan? Because he'd just hand me everything on a silver platter, like always. And Mom would praise me, and everyone would pretend I'm not just charity. So instead you maxed out our credit cards and nearly got us evicted? She flinched. I was going to pay it back. Once I got the contract. Our contract. Any contract. She stood up, pacing. I needed to win something on my own. To prove I'm not just Tom's widow or Ethan's sister or your charity case. My phone buzzed. Ethan, can we talk? Really talk? No family, no drama. Just us. Looking at Madison, I saw something I'd missed before. Not manipulation, but desperation. The same kind that made me work through weekends to prove myself, that pushed me to succeed without family connections or handouts. The contract's off the table, I said firmly. But she looked up, hope flickering across her face. Jordan's looking for a full-time designer. Entry level, your own projects, no connection to me or Ethan. If you want it, the interview's yours. But Madison? I held her gaze. This is it. Your one chance to do things right. Why would you help me? After everything? I showed her Ethan's text. Because sometimes people need to lose everything to figure out what matters. You're not the only one who needed to prove something. She stared at the text, then at me. He really moved out? Apparently. What are you going to do? I gathered my things, heading for the door. I'm going to talk to my husband. And you're going to start acting like the person your kids think you are. Riley, she called as I reached the door. I really am sorry. I know. I paused. The interview's at 9 tomorrow. Don't be late. Walking out, I texted Ethan back. Your place or mine? His response was immediate. Wherever we can start over. Sometimes revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes it's about giving people the chance to be better, including yourself. I met Ethan at our favorite coffee shop, the one where we had our first date 6 years ago. He looked terrible, unshaven, wearing the same wrinkled shirt he'd worn to work 3 days earlier. Before either of us could speak, Helen burst through the door. There you are. She marched to our table, Madison trailing behind her like a shadow. Family meeting. Now, Mom, Ethan started, but Helen cut him off. No. I've watched this family fall apart long enough. She sat down uninvited, pulling out a stack of papers. I've remortgaged my house. We can pay off Madison's debts, get you both back on your feet. Stop. My voice shook. Just stop. Riley, Madison whispered. Please just listen. To what? More lies? More manipulation? I looked at Ethan, who wouldn't meet my eyes. Did you know about this? His silence was deafening. Of course he did, Helen said proudly. Because he understands family comes first. Now, if you'll just sign here. I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. Sign what? Well, since you and Ethan are still married, we need your signature on the loan documents. Just a formality. The laugh that escaped me didn't sound human. You want me to sign for a loan? To bail out Madison? Again. It's the only way, Helen insisted. Unless you want everyone to lose everything. Mom, Madison said suddenly, this isn't right. Quiet, Helen snapped. I'm fixing this. I'm fixing all of it. I turned to Ethan. Is this what you wanted to talk about? Getting me to sign more of my life away. He finally looked up. I didn't know she was bringing the papers. I don't know how else to fix this. Fix what? Your sister's lies? Your mother's control? Our marriage? I pulled out my phone, showing them all the email I'd received that morning. The sheriff's office confirmed our eviction date. We have 7 days to move out. But sure, let's take out another loan. The coffee shop had gone quiet, other customers pretending not to watch our family implode. If you'd just sign, Helen started. I filed for separation yesterday. The words hung in the air like smoke. Ethan's face crumpled. You what? Helen demanded. Check your email, Ethan. Lila drew up the papers. My hands were steady as I gathered my purse. I'm done setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. Madison grabbed my arm. Riley, please. I got the job at your company. I'm trying. Too late. I pulled away. Way too late. You ungrateful, Helen stood, face red. After everything this family has done for you. Done for me? I laughed again, that horrible broken sound. You mean like draining my savings? Destroying my credit? Making me feel crazy for wanting basic boundaries? Riley, Ethan finally spoke. We can work this out. Can we? Because it looks like you're still choosing them. Even now. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Helen. I sent copies of all Madison's fraudulent charges to your mortgage company. Good luck with that loan application. Outside, my phone exploded with notifications. Texts from Helen, calling me a monster. From Madison, begging me to reconsider. From Ethan, saying he loved me. I blocked them all. Walking to my car, I saw my reflection in a store window. I looked different somehow, older, harder, but also stronger. My phone buzzed one last time. Jordan. Madison didn't show up for her first day, he said when I answered. Want to tell me what happened? I watched a family walk past, parents, kids, all laughing together. The kind of family I thought I was marrying into. The kind of family that was supposed to love you, not destroy you. Riley, I think I just burned every bridge I had, I said quietly. Good. His voice was firm. Sometimes you have to burn it all down to build something better. I got in my car, looking at the coffee shop one last time. Through the window, I could see them all huddled together, Helen gesturing angrily, Madison crying, Ethan with his head in his hands. My family. My problem. My past. I started the engine and drove away, leaving them to clean up their own mess for once. 3 days after filing for separation, I found Madison sitting on the floor outside my apartment, surrounded by moving boxes. My boxes, packed by Ethan and left for me to collect. They're getting evicted, she said without looking up. Mom's house, I mean. The mortgage company found out about everything. I stepped over her, key in hand. Not my problem. I told them everything. Her voice cracked. About the credit cards, the shopping, the fake job interviews. Even showed Mom my real bank statements. I paused at the door. Why? Because you were right. She stood up, and I noticed she wasn't wearing any of her usual designer clothes. I've been hiding behind Tom's death, using it as an excuse to let everyone else carry my weight. Inside, the apartment felt hollow. Half the furniture was gone, Ethan's half. On the kitchen counter sat a stack of papers, bank statements, credit card bills, receipts. All organized and annotated in Madison's neat handwriting. What is this? Everything I owe you. The real numbers. She picked up one of my boxes. I got a job. Not at your company, a real one, at a small design firm across town. Started yesterday. Good for you. I meant it to sound sarcastic, but it came out tired instead. Ethan moved out of Mom's place, she continued, setting the box down. He's staying at a motel. Said he needs to figure out who he is without everyone telling him who to be. A laugh bubbled up in my throat. Took him long enough. He loves you, Riley. He loved the idea of me. The supportive wife who'd sacrifice everything for his family's happiness. I started opening boxes, checking their contents. That person doesn't exist anymore. No, Madison agreed quietly. She doesn't. And maybe she shouldn't have had to. My hands froze over a box of photo albums. What do you want, Madison? To pay you back. Not just the money, though I will, every cent, but for showing me what real strength looks like. She pulled out an envelope. This is my first paycheck. It's not much, but keep it. Riley, please. No. I turned to face her fully. You want to pay me back? Get your life together. Be the mother your kids deserve. Stop letting your grief become everyone else's burden. I'm trying. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But I need help learning how. That's what therapists are for. What about family? Family? I gestured at the half-empty apartment. Family doesn't destroy each other for sport, Madison. Family doesn't. A knock at the door cut me off. Ethan stood there, looking more like himself than he had in months. "Sorry," he said, seeing Madison. "I can come back." "No." Madison grabbed her purse. "I was just leaving." "But Riley." She paused at the door. "Thank you for being the only one brave enough to let me fall." After she left, Ethan and I stood in the wreckage of our shared life. "I started therapy," he said finally. "Turns out watching your father drink himself to death leaves some scars. Makes you terrified of failing your family." "I'm not your family anymore, Ethan." "I know." He ran a hand through his hair. "But you taught me what family should be. What love should be. Even if I learned it too late." My phone buzzed. A text from Jordan. Madison's old client list came through. "You were right. She's talented. Want me to pass her name to some contacts?" Looking at the message, then at Ethan, then at Madison's careful accounting of her debts, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, exactly, but understanding. "It's never too late," I said, surprising myself. "To learn, to change, to start over. It's just hard as hell." Ethan nodded, tears in his eyes. "I'll keep working on it. Even if we can't fix us." I picked up Madison's envelope, still sitting on the counter. Maybe some things aren't meant to be fixed. Maybe they're meant to be rebuilt. From scratch. With better foundations. He smiled sadly. "When did you get so wise?" "Around the same time I stopped being afraid of being alone." I handed him the last box. "Goodbye, Ethan." As he left, I texted Jordan back, "Pass her name along. Everyone deserves a second chance. Even family." 1 year later, I stood in my new apartment's tiny balcony garden, tending to the herbs I'd started growing after the divorce. The basil was thriving, stubborn, and resilient, a lot like me these days. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. "Kids' art show tonight." No pressure, but they asked about their Aunt Riley. Before I could respond, another message popped up, a photo of a framed check on her office wall. The memo line read, "Final payment, R. Whitman." She'd kept her promise, paying back every cent over the past year. "I'll be there," I texted back. Lila called while I was getting ready. "You sure about this?" "Last time you saw Helen was 6 months ago at the divorce hearing," I finished. "I know, but this isn't about her." At the community center, Madison's kids spotted me first, running over with paint-stained hands and proud grins. Their artwork hung on the walls, bright, messy masterpieces signed with careful letters. "Look." The younger one pointed to his painting. "It's our new house." The canvas showed a small blue house with a garden. In the corner, I noticed a familiar figure tending to tiny green plants. "Is that me?" I asked. He nodded. "Mom says you taught her about growing new things." Before I could process that, Helen appeared. She'd aged years and months, the loss of her house and status evident in her tired eyes. "Riley," she said stiffly. "I didn't expect." "Mom." Madison's voice cut through the tension. "Not tonight." Helen pressed her lips together, nodded once, and walked away. Progress of sorts. "Sorry," Madison sighed. "She's still." "Helen." I offered a small smile. "Some things don't change. But some things do." She gestured around the room, her new design business logo on the event banners, her kids' artwork proudly displayed. Her simple but elegant outfit bought with her own money. "I got the Morrison contract," she said quietly. "The one you recommended me for." "I know." Jordan told me. "I almost didn't take it. Felt like cheating, using your connection." "Taking help isn't cheating," I said, surprising myself. "It's knowing you're worth enough to accept it." A commotion at the door drew our attention. Ethan had arrived, looking healthy and grounded in a way he never had during our marriage. Our eyes met across the room, and he gave me a small wave before being tackled by his niece and nephew. "He's doing better," Madison said. "The therapy, the boundaries. He's learning." "We all are." "Good." I meant it. Later, as I was leaving, I found an envelope tucked under my windshield wiper. Inside was a card with a familiar garden design, Madison's work, and a note. You could have destroyed us all. Instead, you forced us to grow. Thank you for showing me the difference between enabling and empowering. The kids miss their aunt if you're ever ready for that role again. On your terms this time. At home, I added the card to my memory box next to the final divorce papers and the first check Madison had sent. My phone buzzed with one last text from her. Mom's starting therapy next week. Says she doesn't want to lose another daughter. Baby steps, right? I looked at my thriving herb garden, remembering how dead and dried out everything had been a year ago. Growth isn't always pretty. Sometimes it requires cutting away the dead parts, letting things fall apart before they can rebuild. Baby steps, I texted back. Then I opened my laptop and started working on a new marketing proposal. The client? A small family therapy center looking to rebuild their brand. Their mission statement caught my eye. Healing doesn't mean the damage never existed. It means the damage no longer controls our lives. I began typing, my herb swaying gently in the evening breeze. Some might call it irony, using my experience to help other broken families heal. I called it growth. Behind me, a new basil sprout pushed through the soil, small, uncertain, but reaching for the light anyway. Kind of like all of us, really. Breaking free, breaking down, breaking through. Growing anyway.